come back to recreate Martha's concern and address it.
All right, Bill, you are now live.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks everybody for coming to the meeting, and I'm hopefully, I mean, I'm going to say this and right from the start, I'm hoping that this is the last formal meeting of the task force. Okay, and we'll find out by the end of the meeting, but that's the goal. That doesn't mean that people can't still have some input and there's things to do if necessary, but at least I anticipate this will be the last formal meeting. I also realized as I look at myself on the screen, I had much less gray hair when we started this task force. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay.
Well, you had a full head of hair.
I still do, but it's not, it's not the way it was. And you all look just like you did 2 years ago. I don't know.
Todo por la patria.
All right. Okay, we had a question that I think is an important, at least question and comment from Martha just before we went live, and let me address that. And it's a further clarification of the fact that members of governmental agencies that have really helped us on this task force, we want to be clear that at points we are recommending that the city do something or the county do something in this report, that we do understand that the members, let me just say the agency members of the task force are not making that recommendation. It is the task force making the recommendation, understanding that distinction, okay? That the agency representatives are not able to take a advocacy position on policy, let me say it that way. Now, we dealt with this very early on in the formation of this task force, and I think I've made that clear in the draft report. I've also, you can see when you read it, as you hopefully have, read this draft report, the copy of the letter essentially that you all put together on this topic, clarifying that. Remember we did that? That is an attachment to the report and it's referenced in the report. So beyond that, what I need to know now is whether or not any agency representatives feel we need to do more than clarify it and make that attachment that you all wrote. Is there anything else we need to do about this? I think it's important, and I think we covered it, but Martha, what do you think?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, because I'm seeing in the final documentation, it starts off with the role of all the agencies based on the information that we had drafted to
Right.
And stuff. So I guess what is new to me is the I guess on page 5,
Okay.
I get what you guys have done is basically listed out what role, what exact, I guess, recommendations you would like to be implemented by each agency and stuff. So that's, new to us. And so therefore we will have to have a chance, I guess, to review and reply or figure out how we work together in order to, make this happen, I guess, or move forward based on those who make those decisions.
Right. So let me just respond to that. Yes, you are looking at a report that makes recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
No question about it. Okay. And in a number of different areas, and in regard to, in some cases, what we recommend the city do, in some cases, what even we recommend the county do, and also what they do together, or what we think that they have to do together. And that's going to require ongoing discussion, okay? But for purposes of the report, we want to be clear about the issues that we're dealing with, the problems that were identified early on and then enhanced to some degree, the recommendations that we're making, and also that at any time we make a recommendation, this is not a policy determination of your office, for example. In other words, this is not a substitute for the Office of Planning in the county where you are standing before city council or something and saying, well, this is the position of our office, our department. We completely understand that. And you're right, it's an ongoing process. But at some point, like now, we're going to get this report in front of decision makers. And then there's going to be a follow, we'll talk about this tonight, but there's going to be a follow-up in terms of answering questions, clarifications from people who do have to look at this and decide, well, what are we going to do with this? You know, we want something to be done with it, obviously. And we'll go from there. Rhonda, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah, I think we need to give Martha and Michelle and Sally an opportunity to determine how they want to handle that, which means it may not be submitted to us on Friday, because I'd rather have it right and correct before we submit it. They might have to go back to their supervisors to get some sort of clearance or guidance on this. So if that's what they need and we need to take a few more extra days, then I say we do that, because we don't want to thwart any good relationships that we've already established. So if they need a couple more days, I would say that we need to give it to them. They've been extremely supportive of us, done everything we've asked them to do. So that's the least we can do for them.
Sure, I agree. But give it to us in writing, please. Okay, so if you're going to go back, hold on. If you're going to go back and get some clarification or guidance, I think that's absolutely fair. I agree, Rhonda, but I am going to require that you put this in writing. You put it on the Google Drive, you circulate it to all the members so that we can deal with it. Okay, I'm not going to call a meeting for it unless it's really unusual. But you're right, let's do it and let's deal with it. So.
Sally, would it be better if we, because even if this report, the final draft of this report is presented to the council, it would then just be the council that we will answer, provide the, I guess, responses from each agency rather than having to delay this portion of it. Because it could just come from, here are the recommendations from this group, and then we would then reconcile that with the council in terms of what the next steps would be, which would then give us the enough time, because the council is going to review it, and then there's going to have to be a kind of session, and Sally, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a process associated with the council that you guys, or the planning board that you guys are going to be presenting to, in which we will have a chance also, I guess, to work with Sally in the response to this documentation, so that doesn't necessarily need to wait for us to delaying you guys to present it to on Friday.
I mean, I'd like you guys to take a look. There's very little in these recommendations that hasn't come out of one of your plans already. So these are recommendations that we have found in county planning documents, older city planning documents, older funding requests that went to the state. So I don't know, just take a look and see where you see these things, because I don't think they are going to be anything that needs a lot of additional work. I think it's just clarifying the very next step on all of these actions.
I understand that.
Maybe I can look at it one more time, but I think that we already kind of addressed this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Martha, Michelle, when we wrote our memo. So I would just ask that our memo be included as an appendix and maybe referenced, and maybe I can find a place where it would make sense to reference that and just say, this was the role of staff, that's what I'm hearing, is that you just want to make it clear that we're not saying like Sally and Martha think these things are what we should do next.
Yeah, well, that's included in their documentation. I think that's what I saw on
Yes, it is.
the first couple of
Right.
pages of their final documentation. So that's fine. The only issue is, and I understand that these may have come from previous reports and recommendations that we've had, but administrations have changed. And today's Wednesday. You guys are presenting Friday. Yeah, there's no, and we're still in the middle of what we're in the middle of. And so therefore, just taking this information and getting the appropriate parties to review and respond before Friday may be a task.
And that's what I'm
That's
saying. Martha, what I'm saying is you're gonna have to take a little bit of time. And
Mhm.
coming from, as a member of the city council, what I'm gonna say is, whatever we submit to them is gonna be what we submit to them. Don't
Mhm.
try to add anything after that, because
That's my
then
point.
it becomes messy. It
Yeah.
becomes messy. If you need and I'm gonna say this, if you need another week, then take a week, because it's well worth getting it right. Once it goes to the council, that's it. You're stuck with for lack of a better word, you're stuck with whatever we get.
No, that was my point, is let's not say, get this out and we'll come in with an addendum.
Okay, Camille.
I have a question. I want to make sure I understand. Martha, are you wanting the county to see our recommendations that may involve the county? You want the county to review these recommendations before we present them to city council?
Yes, I would need to have a chance to take it back to the administration, because again, this process we've been key in making sure that everything has been sent to the administration for review and discussion in terms of what our role has been, if there has been any issues or concerns, how we can move some stuff forward, even in the interim of this final report being done. So there has been things that we've done for the county, the city, and the state to move some things along, even though you guys have been drafting this final report. We have now a quarterly agenda item for Forest Drive in our meetings now. So there's things that are happening and and stuff like that. But again, those are stuff that we have gone back to our respective agencies to discuss and go, listen, this is what's happening. We think that we can do this. This is how we're moving forward. Now that you have a final documentation that was sent to us last night, it has to move forward. It's the same thing.
I have a little bit, I understand what you're saying, but I have a little bit of I'm a little confused, because just because we are presenting our recommendations to the city council does not mean that the city council is going to say yes to things that involve county.
No, I agree. And that's how come I'm saying that I don't think it will delay anything in our part. We just need to make sure that our agencies knows, okay, this is what the recommendations are.
What if they don't like our recommendations that involve the county? Then what happens?
Well, I can't make that decision.
See, I don't know.
No. Time
Yeah,
out.
I almost think
With this, no. My understanding was, this was my understanding several months ago. We have elicited from you all technical direction and advice.
Mm-hmm.
You all have nothing to do with blessing this thing before it comes to us. No. We only want your technical advice. We're making recommendations. You all just want to make sure that what's in the document is we provided technical advice, we provided direction. We've even done a few things that you have in here. But beyond that, no. This is the document from the task force, not by way of the county. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay.
It's not our
The
documentation.
county-
There won't be nothing from the county that's gonna come out and say, well, this is, but I also have to be able to put them on notice and go, okay, these are the things that are gonna be coming out, and because we got to get ready to also respond to whatever the council's gonna say.
Okay,
So you're
let me put
looking
a
for somewhat
point on
of
this.
approval.
Hold on. Let me just kind of put a point on this, because listening to everybody. Martha, what I'm hearing from you is I need to check with my boss, and I may need a couple of days to do that. Okay, you got it. Check with your boss. Okay. The second thing is so that you can inform your boss about the role you have been playing is what I'm also hearing. Okay. And I think that's fair. Try to do that in a couple of days. If you need more, tell us, you'll get it. Okay. And up to a week. Okay. Let's, is that reasonable? Fair?
I understand, and I think that's what I have been saying, that, you know,
Okay.
I'm not trying to stop whatever flow or
No, I
whatever
know.
time schedule is.
I
I'm
know.
just, you know,
Okay.
it's still a process that each agency still needs to do.
Right.
So
And
does Michelle have to
Sally's
do that for the
suggestion,
state too?
Sally's suggestion that maybe, or yours, that you and Sally check maybe with Patrick and Michelle and some others, that if there is a substantive addition that clarifies your position in this, that you want to add, make that determination, tell us quickly, okay? Because we have your memo in the report, and we have in the report not only an explanation of your role, but frankly, I wanted to include a sense of gratitude for your participation. So that's in the report, but check it out. If we need to add something to clarify that, please let us know. Rhonda.
Question. I want to know, does Michelle have anything to add from the state side?
The attachment is already included, I think, as Sally has discussed as well, with our role being clarified. So that, I think, helps cover, you know, what our roles were and defines it pretty clearly. If we're given the opportunity to have a few days to read through and see if we have any substantive concerns and leadership, then I'll take the opportunity to do that as well.
Okay. Great.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Before we go further, I do want to right up front thank people who have persevered and put a lot of work into this, and at least recognize them tonight. And I think as we present this, we will certainly recognize everybody, and particularly those people who have stuck with us and really contributed well and substantively. So in no particular order, I would like to recognize and thank Camille, Claire, Lily in particular, who did a lot of drafting. I want to thank Sally, who was always responsive. I mean, this was not just in these meetings, but you know, looking at problems, brainstorming with us, you know, that was extremely helpful. So that needs to be recognized and will be recognized anytime. If I ever have an opportunity to talk to City Council about this, all of you will be recognized. Rhonda, I want to thank you, particularly not only as a sponsor, but having the vision, helping to keep us on track. It's always good to have more than one shepherd when you're herding cats. And so thank you for that. And I also want to thank people. Everybody here is very busy, okay? And we're in the middle still, obviously, of the pandemic. And so the logistics have been difficult. But I do want to thank people who took the time to read the drafts, go onto the Google Drive, submit edits, do some homework, look at reports, add things. I think that's the kind of work that whoever watches these videos in the city and hears about this don't get to hear about much. So I want to just take a minute and thank you all for this. Okay. Okay.
Welcome.
And I do want to say thank you to John. John is not technically a member, an appointed member, but he has been helpful from the county standpoint, really feeding us information. And so, John, I don't know if there's an unofficial knighthood, something we can do to, or at least on the video. So, okay.
Well, we'll meet at an appropriate place for the knighting, okay?
Yeah, good.
And I'll buy the drinks.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bill,
Yes.
I think I'd also like to recognize you for your leadership. You've done an amazing job. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. My pleasure. Uh, Thank you. You know, there are task force and task forces, and you know, I've always thought it's in my experience, it's always the last 8 to 12 people. You know, it rises to the top.
Through thick and thin.
That's right. So you know, there are 21 of us on paper, but here's the group right here. So thank you.
It's nice.
Okay. Rhonda, go ahead.
Just quickly, on behalf of Ward 3, I definitely like to thank Sally, Dr. Nash, Martha, and Michelle. And not only because from Ward 3, we have a lot of border issues, and Martha and Nestor and the county group, as well as Michelle and Corinne and Kim over on the state side, have been extraordinarily supportive of Ward 3. And I want to publicly say that. They've always been there, very supportive. Chris Phipps and everyone over at the county building have done a tremendous job, especially for Ward 3. And I want to publicly say that they've been tremendous for things beyond what we're doing right here. So
Great. Excellent.
Hey.
Excellent. All right. In a real meeting, I would have brought donuts, but you can't. So, so here's where we are. Okay. And we're talking about, we've already started to talk about a timeline for delivering the report. Okay. Within the last couple of days, I know, Lily, you have received, and I've been copied on emails from Rhonda and maybe a couple of others about some edits and fact checking and so forth that we need to do. So we are going to do them. All right. And you're going to have an opportunity, those of you who submitted comments, edits, clarifications, I think we've got all of those. You will see the final product with how that's dealt with. Okay, let me say it that way. You'll see the inclusion of your input before this goes out. I don't want to use this session as an editing session. Okay, what I do want to kind of confirm with you all is that we have touched all of the substantive areas that were generated by members of the task force, okay? And historically, that took a number of forms. First of all, as you recall, we broke into groups and we used groups to identify issues, and then we combined issues, and then we added some issues, and then we went from a group meeting, then we had the pandemic, we couldn't meet in person. So we went to a matrix model to share the matrix and kind of add, subtract, clarify, ask questions during meetings and so forth. And there was just a distillation of the substantive questions we addressed and essentially the substantive responses. In addition to that, individual members and in some cases, a couple of members added concepts or refined concepts that had come up earlier. Let me give you 2 examples of that, okay? Actually, I'll give you 3 examples of it. One example was the recommendation that we recommend adoption of the Peninsula Principles, okay? And that's the way it started out from the groups. That then was the subject of conversation in meetings, and most particularly, I remember a conversation that we had about this with Sally and Eric. I don't think Eric's with us tonight. Raising the issue that Annapolis couldn't, and let me just try to say this correctly, could not per se adopt the Peninsula Principle as written because it presented some unique problems from their perspective. Okay, let me put it that way. And we considered all of that and discussed all of that. And you see in the final draft a change, okay? So the change is not to per se adopt the peninsula principles, but rather that the city consider melding some of these principles into their planning. We say it better in writing, but that's the idea. So that's an example of how the original recommendation was morphed into something that came out in the report. Another example, and let me just go to, because this is a little bit more dramatic. Unfortunately, I don't see Chris on the screen tonight, okay. A section was added, including an exhibit that talks about some possible structures in future processing and planning. And this is an attachment 4. I mistakenly sent out the first draft of that Chris did as attachment 3. Subsequently, about 5 minutes later, saw my mistake and sent it out to you as attachment 4, okay? Unfortunately, Chris is not here to talk about this tonight, but he did participate in 2 meetings and submitted this document much earlier. And Chris did a kind of a deep dive into a very structured program that he references other jurisdictions around the country have utilized. I mean, that's all cited in his wording. That is it's much more formal in terms of how citizens participate in the planning process and how they do that in wards and when it crosses over wards and so forth. And I think you've all have seen that. And I know I talked to Chris about this along with Lily and others, and I'm going to be completely honest. We had real concerns about, is this too much? In other words, one thing we had consensus about is that we wanted to incorporate the idea of the community benefit agreements. And that is a subject of another attachment. At Sally's recommendation, we described that in the report. And we agreed with her that maybe the detail of all of that could be done as an attachment. So you see that in regard to community benefit agreements, okay, as a proposal to look at. Chris's model is, and this is what he and I talked about, is even further out, okay? It's not immediate. It's even, and by far out, I don't mean it's far out. I mean, it's something to decide later, okay? It's something that if you're looking at a progression. Now I'm gonna, again, if people want to discuss this, I'd like to hear it tonight, okay? And I'm just gonna share with you how I dealt with it. And I'm perfectly okay if this group wants to do something else. I mean, if you don't think this is on base, then now's the time, folks, okay? The thing I struggled with, it is too prospective, okay? If the idea is in dealing with citizen involvement, we wanted to try to do a progression from mandatory community meetings to possibly doing something with the community benefit agreements. And then we've got this whole thing, okay, that we're talking about as an example of what could be looked at in the future. What's the fundamental question? Is that necessary in this report? Should we do it? Is it a distraction? These are things I've heard from people. I made the call, well, it's not the final call, you're the final call, but I made the call to include it for 2 reasons. One, Chris did a hell of a lot of work on this, okay? And I think it had merit, I do, it does. But I think the proper presentation was look at what could happen. Okay, look at if if you're really working on citizen participation, here's an example of what other people have done. And I'm not sure that comes across as well as it should in the report. I'm going to stop rambling right now. And maybe this is just my problem. Okay. But I'd like to get that resolved by some consensus here. Okay. Go ahead, Camille.
I had thought at our last meeting that we did talk about this and
Yeah.
that it was the consensus that we did not want to make a recommendation that we do this, that it was more or less Chris's examples could be just used as, we wanted them to give thought to the possibility of putting some kind of organization together, but not necessarily saying this is what we're recommending they do.
Right.
Now, I could be wrong, but that's what I thought we had talked about. And
You're
Rhonda,
right.
I know Rhonda had made a couple of comments that I know I wasn't totally comfortable with it. And I know Rhonda had questions about it. So maybe I missed something, but I thought we kind of did already come to a consensus on it. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. That's exactly what we did. Okay. The question, and tell me if you think we've already decided this, but the question was, did we decide to include it in the report with that explanation or not? If we did, and if it should be included in the report, did we explain it adequately? Let me put it that way. Did we explain what we were trying to do?
I mean, I think you need to tweak that first paragraph personally a little bit more, but
Okay.
I think there's no problem if the rest of the group agrees that you could give examples of things that could be done, but this is not a recommendation that we do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we almost have to say it that way because
Yeah, because I don't want them to think that's what we're recommending, because we're not recommending it really. At least we weren't last month.
no, we're not. Yeah, Rhonda, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Camille. I think it should be included in there as an example of a possibility, but we're definitely not recommending it. And my question was, I think it's a great idea, but I was wondering, would you want to make, say we take Eastport Civic Association, would you want to make it a subcommittee or something like that within the already existing civic association? That's kind of how I saw it could work much better, at least for now. Now, once it got rolling, then maybe they off. But no, I agree with Camille. It should be it should be something that we put in there that shows an example, but make it clear we're not recommending this, at least not at this time.
Okay. Debbie.
Yeah, I agree with Camille and Rhonda as well. It just needs stronger language.
Making the distinction.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, that I will do that. Having said that, you can see that there are exhibits within this attachment. And one is a listing that he put together of some civic associations. It was brought to my attention today that from Debbie, that Eastport Civic Association is not on the list of civic associations. and that
And
there are a lot of other civic associations that are not on the list.
the list is not accurate anyway, because it's got my company as an association, which I'm a business, not an association. So,
This is the tar pit I was trying to avoid.
you know,
This is exactly okay, so here's what I'd like to do. Hold 1 second.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is what exactly you said, which is I'm going to put stronger language in that this process is not a recommendation of the task force for implementation at this time. that, so nobody's clear about that and spending hours trying to make it work right now. Okay. But that the task force thought it was important to report research about how, what some of the structures are for citizen participation that might have been used in other areas and some formulations of that. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to delete the list of civic associations because I do not have 8 hours to research how many there are or to get it right, or have somebody call me up a week after we submitted it saying you left me off and I'm offended. So, I mean, in all fairness, I'm not going to correct that. I'm going to take it out. Okay. Unless somebody has a, go ahead, Debbie.
No, I agree with that. And also the city maintains a list of
Yeah.
for the community meetings. So we don't need to recreate anything, I don't think. You know, they have a list of civic groups for the community meetings. So we shouldn't
Yeah.
be
I'm not even going to
duplicative.
reference that because
Okay.
I'm going to give the city some slack if
Right, exactly.
their
I'm saying,
their list is not up to date. You know, I don't want to. So.
Right, but I'm
And
just
I'm
saying
not
we don't
sure
need
if
to recreate a
Yeah.
list that's already been created.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is up to date, Debbie. I hope it is, but I'm not totally sure of that. I know the county keeps one as well, but the cities may not be totally up to date. But so is it, you know, if it's a link there or something, feel free to use it, but you might want to indicate it.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that we add it for this. All I'm saying is I agree with Bill's suggestion to remove the list that's there.
Oh,
and
okay.
if people were to look at ever creating a list, that they go first to the city because that's something that exists. And
I think that's what Chris did. Chris used the city listing to start, but he was, you know, back to Bill's, he was really trying to kind of create that organization right now. And so he was trying to look at all of the organizations that had to get folded into this new association. So because we're not going to that level of detail in this report, I think it makes sense to just say you'd start with the city list and get that updated and consider other groups. Yeah.
And Bill, in attachment 3, there is reference there on the 3rd page to establishing civic associations. So is that the same? Is that the same as what we're referencing in 4?
The same thing. Yes, Camille, is the short answer. I contributed that confusion because the first attachment 3 I sent you was a red line version, which was cleaned up in 4. I shouldn't have sent 3.
Oh, okay.
I should have just sent you 4. Okay.
Okay. So disregard 3?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Sorry for the confusion. I realized that 5 minutes after I sent it, I sent the.
So then in your report itself, will there be an attachment 4 or it'll just go up to 3?
It'll be attached. There will be an attachment 4. We're going to clarify the language in the body of the report, as we said tonight, to make sure people understand this is not an affirmative immediate recommendation of the task force. It is an example. It is to be used only as an example for future discussion. You know, I don't want city council or other people diving into that and missing some other very important parts of.
Wasn't there an attachment that explained what community benefit agreements were?
That's a different attachment. I believe that's 3, if I'm not mistaken. So yes.
Okay,
so,
then I've got something, I don't know what I've got here. Okay.
Yeah.
Something's mixed up here, but.
Yeah, they're two different things. Community benefit agreements is an affirmative recommendation of the task force.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
but I guess I don't have that down as an attachment.
That didn't come through. That didn't come through in the latest round of.
Did it? Okay.
I don't.
I'm afraid
I'm sorry.
I'm myself here.
I'll make sure you guys are going to see the whole thing, all attachments, everything.
You must scrutinize it. I'm scrutinizing it.
I know you.
And we'll do a list of all the attachments
Yeah, and
in front of all the attachments, so
yeah,
we could double check that.
those
All right, I'm
documents.
throwing this one away. Okay.
Okay. Okay, I think I've resolved my question, and I think I know what to do. Any other discussion on this?
Well, I don't want to monopolize the time, but I do want to say thank you to Bill, because I really think doing these things as an attachment versus being in the main report really helps, because this way they don't have to go through all the clutter. If they want to know what a CBA is, they can go look at that attachment. So thank you for doing that, because I think that that's better. And I also love what Lily did.
Yes.
I helped her edit it, but Lily came up with this whole concept and everything. And I just think it's a really great quick reference. And then we can go to the report that, the big report that we did to see further explanation. So I think it's nice. I think it's a good package, the way it looks right now. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, that was an excellent addition. And what I'd like to do with that is not make it an attachment, but put it in the executive summary. So you don't have to flip to the back to find the summary that Lily did, which really sums up and guides you to the particular part of the report. Unfortunately, there are going to be people out there that are only going to read Lily's diagram, but
well,
it's a diagram that really gives a lot of information. And
it tells them what page to go to, if they want to see more information. And
right.
So I think it's good.
Quite a work. Okay.
The only other thing that, and Rhonda, this is, I guess, really to you, but with all the time that we've invested in doing this, I guess my biggest fear this whole time doing this is accountability, that we put so much time and really, a lot of thought into putting this program together. And what would really upset me or make me very disappointed is to see that none of this comes to fruition. And so I hope that there'll be some way for, if we're not going to meet again as a task force, that there's still be some way for us to know that our recommendations, some were accepted, some were not, but I'd like to know what happens to them, because I feel like we've put so much into it that I don't want to feel like all that time was for naught. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I had, just while you were saying that, I something that we can make sure that doesn't happen. And I'm going to look to Dr. Nash, if possibly provide a tool to keep us on that track to make sure we do something, possibly stay in touch with planning, zoning, with State Highway. And I forgot to mention Ramon, my real friend, good friend, Ramon Robinson. It wasn't in the thank you. And he and I worked on some West County issues, so he should have been my name.
Yeah, Ramon.
To possibly have a work session, maybe twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, for 20 minutes or something. And Dr. Nash can put that together to kind of keep it front and center with us. She can reach out to her counterparts and they still stay in the loop, but we twice a year have something before the council, find us, us know that this is still there, that we work on it. Now, the good thing is, as Lily and Martha said, they've already knocked out one thing on the list. So that's something we can definitely bring to the council and say, okay, we've already knocked off 20% of what we were going to do, or 25, whatever it was. And so let's think of something, and we as a group, or you all as a group, can think of what's the next thing within the next 6 or 8 months, we can check off the list. And so I'm not saying that's prioritized, but if it's something you think that we can do, I know there was some discussion that is to be had with county, and I'm not going to get into that today, but with the county as well, to see how we can envelope what we have into whatever they're doing. So that would be a point of a work session discussion. So there are several items that I know Dr. Nash can come up with at least 2 to 3 times a year. And the first one will be the one we've already done. So that's a great step forward. But doing that with the council keeps bringing to our attention. And I'm going to speak for Alderman Arnett on this one, even though I haven't talked to him about it. I'm sure he's all for that as well. So hear your thoughts or whatever. Dr. Nash, since I called you out on this one.
So Alderwoman, what were you imagining, or how were you imagining that the report be presented to City Council? Were you thinking a work session?
Well, I had a meeting with Miss Pauly she doesn't work for the county, but Lily knows her, and she and I met, was it last week, I think, and between Lily and Bill, that's something they can immediately talk about. She's a member of Action Annapolis, so I don't know if that would fit or if it would fit for a work session. But that's the group can think about how that would go. Dr. Any suggestions? Do you think a work session would be the most appropriate place?
Well, from my point of view, I think that it would be useful to have a forum where we are talking to members of the council and anyone else you want to include on that, to answer questions, clarifications, priorities, where do we go from here with this? So if that's more easily done in a work session as opposed to a general meeting, I would say a work session is better because it's a confined topic, and gives everybody time to answer questions.
And they could review it beforehand.
Correct.
So that they'd come to the session with questions.
Exactly. On this issue.
The only thing go ahead. Right about now, we've had discussions about loading up the work sessions with too many items. And so we're really kind of collecting because we've got to get legislation in by June. And so everything is kind of coming to a point. And so we've had some discussion about putting more things on the agenda because it tends to run over. And
Sure.
So
Sure.
I don't know. I know the next one I think is going to be the Board of Elections is going to be on the agenda. So that I can pretty much assure you is going to be 2 hours. So it's not, I'm going to step out on a limb and say we can't do it in March. It might have to be April.
That's fine. I think,
Okay.
Let me follow up on that a little bit because this is issues of distribution. Okay. And somewhat in this meeting tonight, but also following up with you, Alderwoman, about distribution. Here are my thoughts. The delivery would be over a cover letter signed by Lily and I with the report. Okay, all of the members are going to be listed in the. There's going to be an attachment that lists everybody in the task force, but the cover letter would be signed by me and Lily, delivering it to the City Council, the Department of Planning and Zoning simultaneously. I'm going to just say people we'd like to see it also very quickly would be the Planning Commission, and within the city manager, certainly the mayor, and anybody else that you recommend. I mean, those are just suggestions from my point of view. On the county side, and this, I think we should do simultaneously in terms of the distribution, because the county executive signed and their Office of Law signed a memorandum of agreement to cooperate with this task force. And so I think the distribution should go simultaneously to, and just think about this, if you want to do it differently, it's fine, but to their council, to the county executive. I know that Lisa Rodvian, who attended some of the initial meetings, has expressed a lot of interest in this task force and has kind of been keeping in the loop, as has Senator Sarah Alfrith. So I would like them to see copies fairly quickly or even simultaneously at the time we distribute it. One thing I would.
And Bill, they have, the county has a planning advisory board. It's like the planning commission. And I know some of those commissioners, and they are also interested in our recommendation. So they're going to be looking to read this report too.
So I guess my request, and I would direct this to you, Alderwoman Pindell Charles, and also Ross, and from the city standpoint, Sally Nash. If there are objections or nuances or timing issues of distribution that you want us to know about, let us know. Okay, we'll follow your advice.
I would suggest, as a matter of protocol, that it come to the council first.
Okay.
I don't think it should be done simultaneously, because we were the one resolution.
Okay.
And maybe a day or two later or whatever, but it should come to out of the city first, to the city first.
Very good. Okay. I think that's right. I think that's good. In terms of what happens before we do a work session, or even at any time, because there's so many moving parts right now in planning, both from the city and the county, and the development of the comprehensive plan, for which the sector study was always described as a, if not a precursor, kind of a foundation or whatever related to the comprehensive plan. I would like to communicate to, to the Department of Planning and Zoning that we keep an ongoing dialogue on issues related between this report and any development of the comprehensive plan. So that I would like to know that we could have these conversations ongoing. All right. So that's just a request right now. Maybe do that in writing with a submission letter, but that would be a request. And before we lose sight of it, and I don't know that I've captured it well enough in the report, we've always recognized that one of the most remarkable things about the task force was it was purported to be the first time that a working group involving citizens and agency people from the city, state, and county worked together on mutually recognized issues. That had never been done before. And I would like to know that, this follows Camille's comments, that not only be recognized, but be preserved. Okay, in what form and how?
Yeah.
We don't have to decide that. Other people have to decide that. But that is really worth to preserve, and
either we can do it by way of a city citation and or a resolution, another resolution.
Well, yeah, however, but it would be great if you could call it a task force or whatever. It doesn't have to be the same people. It could be different people. It could be a different mix. But the notion is preserve the mechanism where agency planners from the city, the state, and the county are sitting down with citizen representatives regularly, periodically, to review progress on the report, to review new issues, to render mini reports to whatever agencies need. I mean, just so there's that communication. I mean, it's just been a real help to listen.
It could be a
But-
useful mechanism in keeping things going and in some ways almost accountability a little bit that, you know, we want to know what's the status of this, what's the status of that, you know, so that it's like, oh, gee, I guess we better work on this, you know, because so many things seem to just, you know, these studies appear and then nothing happens to them. And,
Right.
and I would hate to see that happen with this. I really would, because there's some people just put a lot of time into it and we feel pretty strongly about it as far as what we're recommending. And I think it could do good. So, you know, whatever formation or whatever vehicle you use, I think it could help to keep it going where things will get done, things will get addressed. You know what I mean? They might not approve everything, but at least you'll see progress one way or the other.
And people get educated, you know, look at it from the, if you look at it from the agency's point of view, you know, how many times are they confronted with groups of citizens in communities that appear to be meeting for an hour with their pitchforks out and not having a complete picture, but having citizen representation in a joint organization can help with education. It can help with understanding the issues on a deeper level, so that as the citizens go back and talk to civic associations or whoever they talk to, they can say, well, wait a minute, you haven't considered this, or you haven't considered what this agency is doing or what they can't do, or why they're doing it the way they do it. I think that's another part of this process that's helpful.
I agree.
So let's keep it going. But I think that, Rhonda, it's the city council that has to make that decision to do that officially. And I'm sure the county would be interested in that as well. They've been extremely cooperative and recognizing the joint effort. So.
And also to the county point, I think, you know, we've talked to Chris Trumbauer about this, and I think there are folks in the county leadership that are looking to the task force to come up with a recommendation for some continuing group that helps coordinate. I think the attention has been given to the fact that there is a lot of interjurisdictional issues that need to be solved as a group, and they are looking to what the task force recommends along those lines. And I mean, very encouraging, the county is going to sponsor a transportation study of the Forest Drive sector in the next fiscal year. They have put it in their budget, and one thing that we are asking at the county level, I know, no, it's amazing.
That's great.
And when I was very excited, I'm glad everyone else tracked.
Yeah.
And we are asking that somehow a group, and it would be the task force if that group continued, would be able to participate in reviewing the study and having ongoing input into that evaluation. So it's very exciting, and it also supports a continuation of some type of task force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have been meeting for just about an hour now, and I don't have anything else to add at this point. Is there anybody else who would like to say anything, add anything? You're all not on mute.
I just like to say this has been a great group. It really, really, we've been together almost 2 years, and This all emanated in many ways from the letter that ECA sent to the council back in, I guess it was March or February 2 years ago, Debbie, that we received. And so that's how it all kind of got started 3 years ago in 2019, 2 years ago.
2019, yeah, 19.
2019, in February, that was the letter that you all sent to the council. And that's really how all this came about. And in 2 years, I know this has been a tremendous effort and success and what we brought together. And the thing is, we've established a template, a model for going forward. To me, that's one of the highlights of all of this.
Well, I don't think anything could be said that better end our meeting. So
So Bill, when Martha gets back to you about the county, is that when you'll do the final version and send it to everybody, or?
yes,
Okay,
I'm going to start. Lily and I have been working on this together. So the short answer is yes, I'll probably start doing some of the immediate edits we've talked about and ratified this evening. Now we're going to wait, obviously, for Martha's feedback, give her the time she needs. So as a practical matter, look for the final, maybe over the weekend or by Monday at the latest. Okay, I mean, unless Martha needs more time, which she'll get. The goal would be to get it out and get it out by next week.
Okay.
So
okay.
thank you, folks. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership.